Hi, this is Stephanie Pache, and I'm here with Brian Song, who has submitted his film, Misha, into the Santa Fe Film Festival. We're going to talk to him a little bit about his film, get to know more about the inspiration for it, and I'm going to start with welcoming you, Brian.
Hey,
Thanks for
Stephanie.
taking
Thank you
time.
so much for including me into this joyous festival. Uh, a festival like Santa Fe is an honor because we know it's a really reputable film festival, and you guys do a great job finding really young, new, independent filmmakers. So I've always appreciated that versus like the bigger ones where I need to be like a big Hollywood actor or whatever just to be able to get into or be even considered. So just me openly submitting onto the platform, I feel very honored that our film was selected to your film festival.
Well, we're appreciative of it. It's an amazing story, which you'll tell us about in a few minutes. So, have you, how long did this take to make from the time you
Okay.
had the inspiration?
So we started principal photography starting in 2015. How the story got started was we can go back to like my infant years. So my father actually was doing a lot of business in the former Soviet Union. So, he's just an entrepreneur. He was just trying to find a hustle where, what I need to find an opportunity. He was living here in America with my family and all.
Mm,
So he just thought that like the fall of communism, that maybe there's an opportunity over there.
mhm.
So he was trying to do business over there. And I know the first time he threw like a business party where he's trying to attract customers and whatnot, he hired like a traditional Korean dance group, but
Mm.
they're from Uzbekistan. So I remember my mom telling me all this, and I was like, "Hey, mom, so where's Uzbekistan? And why are the Korean people living there? And why don't they speak Korean?" So my mother just said, "Listen, you kind of don't understand right now because you just don't have that acumen. But hopefully, with research and with your willing to learn, you might be able to learn their story."
Mm.
So basically, I got older. The internet came around, Google came around, so I was able to learn that these Koreans were taken from Uzbekistan, from the Far East Russia, by Stalin because they were considered political prisoners. Um, they are originally from North Korea. They were probably the poorest of all poorest people. But what attracted them to go to Russia was land. And most importantly, which is a really prominent theme amongst all Koreans, whether you're from Brazil, Mexico, the United States, education.
Mhm.
They weren't able to get education because it was a feudal society. Only the nobles were able to get educated. Only the rich. So they heard that we could go to this land. One, free persecution from Japan because obviously, the Koreans and Japanese have a long history of, what's the word? They just didn't get along that well. They have a
Mhm.
history, but hopefully things are different now. So they heard about this land going to Russia. That one, they were able to get land because they couldn't own land in Korea, and two, there was something called free education. So a lot
Mm.
of the people that were disadvantaged in North Korea came over to the Far East Russia in the towns near like Vladivostok and whatnot. So basically, the Koreans were very prosperous in that area. They were able to normalize their situation. But I think what happened was Stalin had this war with Japan, or with Japan, the Sino-Russian wars, and yeah, I think what happened was his paranoia pretty much took over him, and he felt like the Koreans were pretty much aids to the Japanese and pretty much over, pretty much deported them to the
Oh,
Central Asia.
relocated them out
Yeah,
of the picture, basically.
but he not only did he do that to the Koreans, he did that to all ethnic minorities: the
Mhm.
Tatars, the Polish, the Germans, the Jews. So
Mhm.
it was a melting pot of these political prisoners in the eyes of Stalin.
Mhm.
Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan.
Right. So from your youth, this has been a pressing question in your mind why this is happening, and then you came up with the storyline for Misha.
Well, basically, I just wanted to find a story. So there was a Korean documentary about the Korean diaspora in those areas. So just through social media, I was able to find the casting director. So I just sent him a message, and he was like, "Listen, you sound like a nice guy, but I don't know who you are. Do you think you can meet me in Korea?" And he's like, "I'm like, yeah, sure. When?" And he was like, "Next week." And I was like, "Okay, let's go." So, you know, we had dinner, we had a nice conversation, and basically I just told him like, listen, I need to find a story because obviously I'm not there. I can't blindly pick a topic. And so basically he was able to connect me with this guy, Vladislav Han, who's kind of like the local journalist for the Korean diaspora in that area, in Uzbekistan, in Tashkent. So I, with some courage, yeah, me and a small group of coworkers, we were able to fly to Uzbekistan, and we interviewed a lot of people in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. There we actually met Misha's brother, Dmitry. So basically, we heard stories that his younger brother was really an elite athlete back in the 1970s in Tashkent, Uzbekistan. So basically, it was wonderful to hear his story. So basically, from all the stories that I was able to hear from that local diaspora, I felt like we had to make a film about his little brother, Misha.
And what was special about Misha that made you want to tell his story?
I think his story is special because I think it's kind of like, I'm a Korean diaspora in America as well. So I felt like he went through the same trials and tribulations that all of us do, like coming to a new country and whatnot. One, our parents, we have a hard time communicating with our parents because they speak a different language than we do. Culturally, we're different. Also, acceptance, you know, obviously, you know, we live in America. Obviously, race is an issue. Think about being Korean and going to a place you're brought as a political prisoner.
Right.
So for me, I just felt like all Koreans, or even all minorities that go to a different land where you are the minority, you kind of go through these, I guess, layers and steps for acceptance. And I think what happened was that through sport, that, you know, one, he was able to be respected, and he brought also, from talking to all the other local Korean diaspora, Koreans were more accepted because people like Misha. You know, and also what I liked about it is that even though he spoke Russian and he was very Soviet influenced, we all diaspora kind of had the common themes: education, working assiduously, just being kind to others, and just being a good human being. So what I saw in Misha was that I felt like he was just a really, really great human being, but unfortunately he died tragically and was taken away too early. And I felt like, you know, it's just a sad story that, you know, when somebody has such greatness and is going on such a really nice arc, all of a sudden overnight it's taken away immediately. So that's what really drew me to the story, is that, you know, this guy really, really, really was achieving a lot of success. And then unfortunately, because of a tragic miscommunication, he was taken away too early.
Well, I think that this film is also very important, not only for us to see the cultural differences and challenges, because they're taken from their home to another place, and then you have that melting pot happening, but also the history of why that happened, and then the human stories inside. And to cherry pick that one must have been tough for you, do you think, out of all the stories that you heard? Or do you think you'll have more stories coming out from your research?
Well, so just from my background, and don't judge me, I really like sport. I really like competition, and I really like sport because it's a meritocracy. So whether you have issues with management, or, you know, you don't really fit in culturally with people, at the end of the day, aren't you supposed to play the best players that will enable you guys to win? And I know that with sport, a lot of us come from different backgrounds. You know, some people from well off, some people from lower socioeconomic impoverished areas. But at the end of the day, you all have to find a common goal, which is winning. You have to find a common vernacular and put aside your differences and your culture differences and your issues, just because we can kind of unite and become one, and just be able to achieve the same success, that we're all on the same page. So that's why I think sports always resonated that to me, because I think with, you know, growing up, like, don't judge me. So I played sports in middle school and high school, and, you know, I think it was kind of like, you know, just being like a minority kid in a predominantly white school. It's kind of like joining a gang. You got your protection.
Right,
And you got easily accepted because people were able to be like, you know what? I've never met an Asian guy before, but, you know, they're cool. They're nice. And the family's really nice. And, you know, I know that we were a little apprehensive because we were never exposed. And
Right.
I always believe that exposure leads to expansion. And I
Mhm,
think someone like Misha, he was able to expose his culture
mhm,
and his people. And I think because of that, the Koreans were able to expand.
mhm. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I used to, when my son was younger, I used to teach soccer, and one of the things I told the kids team is together everyone achieves more.
Yes.
So, you know, having that mindset not only on the field, it would be great if that also carried through off the field. And in some cases, it sounds like it did for you.
But also from, so it's interesting you say that. Now, Misha was he was a playmaker. He got everybody involved. He was not only like that on the field, but he was also like that off the field. So a
Mhm.
lot of the stories that I heard from his teammates and from his brother, that if somebody had issues with family or with team management, he would just make sure he check in with them like, hey, listen, you know, how's everything with the wife? You know, how's everything with the family? Oh, my mother's sick, my father's sick. That he was always there to be able to support. So he was really a great leader, not only on the field, but also off the field. So
Mm.
I, during my interview process, you know, there's one of the main, I guess, pillars of Misha was that he was just a very supportive human being, you
Mm.
know, just not only from a team level, but also from a personal level. So
Wow.
interesting you bring that out. That I think what's great is that, you know, sometimes sports people think, you know, the outer world off the field, it's also an extension. Hope, you know, we try to implement that off the field as well. We hope that it becomes an extension into life. So I think that's what Misha really did a great job about that. You know, he learned all this from his brother. So his brother actually was the first Korean to play in the Soviet top league.
Wow.
And so obviously he had a lot of good coaching and a lot of knowledge passed to him.
Mhm.
But what the brother said, that obviously because he was maybe half a generation before Misha played, he went through a lot more discrimination and a lot
Mm.
more trials and tribulations. So the older brother was very instrumental in his development because he made sure whatever happened to him, he really tried his best that it wouldn't happen to his little
Uh,
brother. So he was very fortunate to have that, I guess, mentor to
mhm.
help him pave the way, because his older brother being able without his older brother going through everything, we don't feel like Misha would have been able to be as successful.
Wow. Okay. Well, we love hearing this backstory on how you created this amazing film that's going to be screening at our festival. And we cannot wait to hear the reaction as you make the festival circuit around the world. Um, it sounds like it's going to be amazing. So tell us a little bit about you. Um,
Right.
so put you on the spot.
So my name is Brian Song. I work as a prime. I, I'm 40 years old. I'm based out of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I predominantly work as a commercial producer, working with brands like P&G and other various, you know, just basic household goods and whatnot.
Sure.
I do on-air promos for TV networks. Pretty been much working for the last 20 years or so.
Mm,
Um, Now, but for me, it's just that I wanted to be able to pivot to do something else and be able to tell stories.
mhm.
Um, and I just felt like, I don't know, we call it a midlife crisis when I turned 35. I just thought the time was appropriate where if I was going to do something to be able to pivot, to be a storyteller, to be able to make a film, that 35 was a good age. I was a little more mature.
Mhm.
Um, I had a little more income than I did when I was 25.
Right.
And I think I had a little more direction and also the access to resources. So that's why I think, you know, that's how we were able to make Misha, because I felt like I wanted to do something for myself versus making a film or a commercial for someone else.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's basically the story of Misha and how
Wow,
I got
that's
to Misha. So I work primarily as a commercial producer, but I'm trying my best to be able to, you know, break out and be a
mhm.
storyteller. And places like Santa Fe give us opportunities to be able to, you know, for us to show the films that we're making and whatnot. So we are very grateful.
Well, we're thankful for that. One more thing. What else are you working on, or do you have your next film in the works or ideas going?
So I have an idea with something in the works. So, you know, obviously I'm really into the Korean diaspora thing, the
Mhm.
subject. So um, the the film that I'm trying to develop is about Isao Harimoto. He's actually the first professional baseball player to survive the Hiroshima bombing.
Oh.
So basically, but he's also an ethnic Korean though.
Mhm.
He was raised in Japan, but he's ethnically Korean. So he's actually one of the greatest baseball players in Japanese baseball history. So and he's also my father's favorite baseball player as well.
Oh, okay.
So basically, I'm trying to develop that. So I've been interfacing with his daughter and whatnot. But obviously, because of something called the pandemic, uh,
Yeah.
things haven't been that easy.
Mhm.
Travel being the main
Sure.
thing, and just finding a system where when travel does open up, how do we make this safe? Because he's quite elderly,
Mhm.
and just to make it safe for everybody, and just how do
Sure.
we navigate through this thing with the aftermath with the pandemic. So that's what I'm working on. But also, Stephanie, just because I haven't won the Powerball or Mega Millions, I'm still producing commercials just to make sure
Right.
I can eat and sleep and be able to pay my rent and whatnot. But so yeah, you know what? It's just I wish there was 29 hours in a day, but unfortunately there's only 24 hours.
Right.
All we can do is all I can do is do my best, and that's
Right.
all I can ask people to do is do their best as well.
Wonderful. Well, it's been so nice talking to you, Brian. Really appreciate your time and cannot wait to see not only this story, but the next, because it sounds like you're going to uncover stories that are gems and we all should be paying attention to.
And it's great that you say that because I know that, especially for the American audience, subtitles is a quite arduous thing to do. But I'm just hoping that people come with an open mind, and that if they're willing to hear about a really esoteric story from a part of the world that people kind of forgot about,
Mhm.
I think they'll be really intrigued and they'll be really appreciative of this film. So that's the goals that we're really looking out for these people.
Wonderful. Well, I know that from all of the things, the projects I watch, movie and TV, I like to see those original stories that you can't find anywhere else. They stick with you longer, and you actually then talk more about them. I think that's
Yeah, and I think because we can all resonate to a story like Misha, because it's about family, it's about
Mhm.
struggle, it's about acceptance, it's about like career success. It's you have your relationship with your family, your wife. So I think it's just a lot of relationships that we all can relate to. So I'm hoping that it really strikes a chord with everybody as well.
Well, we do too. Again, thank you so much for taking time with us. And we invite everyone to see your films screening through the Santa Fe Film Festival
Okay.
online.